always respect your decisions.
I don't know if I like psychological edge play. And I was like, well, you asked for it. And the point is to bring you into those dark waters. I crank it up, but it's also because I know that you're going to take it and you can.
Or when your mistress has a criticism for you, it's because she does care. Pups is always trying to be cognizant to use submissive language.
Welcome to Dommed Podcast. We are your hosts, Mistress Gemma
and Goddess Seraphyna.
Are you ready to be dommed?
Pups miniseries, identities, conflict, resolution. One thing that is so special about your dynamic is the lifestyle incorporated into it. And as Pups teased and joked earlier, that there are dreams of waking up in latex in a little puppy cage. Yet,
is that dreams or reality?
It's reality if you wish it so, mistress.
Is it your reality right now?
In Pup's head, yes.
Not the mutual consensus of reality. So, with that, I wanted you to explore, Pups, the relationship that you have with your kinky, submissive side and also your vanilla life. You mentioned that in the interview that it was important, and I wanted you to explore that a little bit.
My kinky side is really a core part of my identity, and it's not something I've ever been ashamed of. But that being said, I'm wearing a mask, and I'm not out as a submissive, so there is a degree of compartmentalization in my life. But what I think has been most interesting about the evolution of my servitude to Mistress Gemma is just how much what we do in this relationship kind of seeps into all areas of my life. And this has been really beneficial, I think, to Pups in terms of the growth that he's experienced. And just to give a concrete example, Mistress Gemma has encouraged me to be more in touch with my feelings. So that's something that I've tried to, not just with Mistress Gemma, but with other people in my life, I've tried to open up with, and tell them how I'm feeling, from my close friends on through to my colleagues. And what I'm finding is that when you do that, people reciprocate, and it leads to kind of deepening in those relationships. It leads to good things.
I do want to poke at, you don't have any shame in your submissive identity, yet when you requested a desire to do psychological edge play, there's always a level of the psychological play in just how I dom, but you wanted to really go there and get pushed. You didn't quite know what that would entail. I remember expressing and stating that you're going to tell one person about your submissive identity. And that was a very, very hard edge. There was a very deep tension and almost interruption of the scene of our play, in that where you really hesitated. You didn't want to say no to me. You said, if you really wish, mistress, but I don't know if that is a good idea, or if essentially I'm ready for it. So I'm just going to poke it there and leave it there, where what is the fear with these friends that you say you're closest to, that you've known the longest, that you trust? And what is your fear around if that was exposed, what would occur?
Fascinating example. I think that is one of the very few times that Pups has been kind of reflexively defensive when something has come up in terms of her dynamic. And I think that when I look back on that episode, I probably should have just to pause to think it through. I think the specific fear that Pups was working through is he trusts his friends, but he's not sure that they guard that information as zealously as he does in terms of that life compartmentalization. And I think how we ultimately achieve resolution to that, to kind of to Pups being defensive is kind of to more specifically name that fear, and also that Pups essentially something that I'm 100% committed to our total power exchange. And a component of that is that I always respect your decisions. So I really don't think I've ever second guessed a decision that you have made or contested a decision that you have made. And ultimately, what makes that possible is the fact that we are able to talk through these things, and that you are willing to accept my viewpoints when you are making your decision. And so that's very important to pups in terms of how we deal with those types of episodes. Pups isn't perfect. It's something that I can certainly work on.
No, that was not. So I'm not actually bringing that up in terms of you did anything wrong. It was perfect because it was psychological edge play, and that was the point, was to see you actually get mind fucked where you didn't realize I was psychologically fucking with you, because at the end you're like, I don't know if I like psychological edge play. And I was like, well, you asked for it. And the point is to bring you into those dark waters of where I know the button is supposed to be pushed that will get you to not know what reality and the scene is.
Gaslighting is very hot. So pups
Well, is that
pups is done with that. Sort of, I guess.
It was consensual.
Oh, absolutely consensual. Pups requested
Yes.
it in a submissive manner, of course.
Yes.
And Pups never makes Pups is always trying to be
I'm so
cognizant
nervous.
to use submissive language.
Breathe. Take a deep breath. You're doing so good.
Yes, mistress. Thank you.
And that also goes to you said that you always tried to basically obey or never question, but you, again, it's a communication. You have brought up things where you've had some hesitation, or that you didn't want to say no, but you brought to me some information that I was not aware of. And again, as you said, I take that in consideration, and I look at that new information and I assess it's always valid. Whatever you bring up in terms of, hey, I want to discuss this, is always valid. However, if I understand the consequences and impact of it, then yes, I will always listen to it. It's not that I won't question your logic or your understanding of it, but it is about understanding the rate at which the edge should be pushed. And that's where the nuances of our dynamic, I think we both really love, is that constant on our toes in a very deliberate manner. It's not throwing one into the deep end, although there are times where I crank it up, but it's also because I know that you're going to take it and you can, because I'm also tracking and reading you. And then conflict resolution, there was only one time that I actually got quite hurt, to be honest. And it was your birthday, where you were a birthday balloon float. I had gone to Party City to get a bunch of balloons, get them filled, was very deliberate about the types of balloons I got certain types that are very iconic, animals and fruits that represent you in ways. And I got there quite right before you arrived. And so I did not have time to change or prep. And so I continued to do our play together in civilian clothes. I do remember after that, when we went to dinner, you said, you said it in a very submissive way, but that you enjoyed more when I was in more kinky or fetish garb. And for me, that really came out of left field, because you are one of the biggest proponents for women and their rights and equality. And I think you actually get frustrated with the injustices we go through, sometimes more than me, in your expression and the way we have discussions around it, which I truly, absolutely honor and appreciate and love about you. But in that moment, it felt a bit of a hypocritical statement. And for me, it felt a lack of appreciation of what I went through to try to create and forethought I put into that scene. But the second that I brought that up to you, you immediately took that feedback, processed it, understood where I was coming from, and apologized. And for me, that awareness, I don't expect perfection. That is not what I expect. But that awareness and understanding and decision to then move forward and be better is where I value our dynamic and the potential for a sustainable future and long-term one.
Something I've learned in life is that it may not have been my intention for the comment to land that way. But that's not actually what matters. What matters is how comments actually land.
Mm-hmm.
I think that so that is something that Pups just needs to carry with him. When you hurt somebody that you deeply love, because I love you so much, mistress, the way forward. I'm really happy to hear that you say that you appreciated how Pups kind of dealt with that, because the way forward to that is to acknowledge what has occurred. I was sorry, but saying sorry doesn't really change anything. What changes things is your actions moving forward, how you approach these types of issues moving forward. And it's something I would encourage kind of subs in general to think about it this way, that when something like this arises, or when your mistress has a criticism for you, it's because she does care. If you learn from that and adjust your behavior, that's going to lead to growth and kind of increased depth of connection over time. And really, so you should welcome that sort of feedback. It may be hard, and certainly as you pointed out to me, Pups can be hard on himself when this type of thing arises. To be honest, it doesn't arise that much in our dynamic, but when it does arise, it's something that I want to impress that I welcome it, because I want to be a better submissive for you.
Everyone, again, me as a dom, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I operate in my shadow. Sometimes I'm not. I am going through things in my life where that kind of taints the way I operate, although I try to be very self-aware and meter about that, because I take my responsibility and the power I'm given as a big gift that I need to be mindful of how that's wielded. We're not perfect, and in a 24/7 lifestyle, again, it's that humanness. Real things happen, and this is very, very vulnerable and authentic side of me that's going to be expressed. But even the past 2 months, I've been going through some of the most difficult events in my personal life with family and certain relationships where very foundational core people in my lives were needing a lot of my attention and containment. And I know that in the past, Pups has had a dynamic where things weren't communicated when his dom needed some space or was going through a personal thing and didn't really iterate what was occurring, which is fair, right? You're left in the dark, so then you're going to create stories. However, I was wanting to be so mindful of that, and that I wanted to make sure he didn't think that I was abandoning him or taking advantage because of, the tribute he gave me on top of the biggest bonus that keeps growing that month. It was a big step for me to allow him into that vulnerable side of, I don't have the capacity. I am hurting. I don't have the resources. And I understand if right now you showing your devotion in these monetary ways where I can't show up as I would want to in the exchange of energy, power dynamic it doesn't feel fair to you. So it's okay if, this month's tribute, you don't have to send it to me, even though I also shared I had to forego all work to really focus in on these life events. That step for me of being vulnerable has significantly increased our bond. And for me, that was a big learning lesson of me being real and human actually amplified my power in our dynamic. And the way you stepped up and really showed your commitment that it's not in those moments. Yes, we love that. And that's something that's always going to be there in the direct interactions and play. But that isn't the linchpin of what we have.
I feel so blessed to be part of the life of someone who's such a beautiful human being and is so generous and giving, in all that humanity, what Pups is, the way Pups sees this is I'm grateful for what we share, I guess I would just want to impress the point that Pups, intends to always show up for you. Sometimes that means when you actively want Pups involvement, but sometimes that means giving you space. Pups is Pups will always appreciate this.
Yeah, you really showed up in that you were there and you offered yourself fully, but you didn't push, and that in itself allowed me to feel held in our dynamic, and more so of I can allow this person in to depths that I've never had with any other dynamic. So thank you.
Thank you, Mistress. It's this speaks to the true meaning of the relationships we form in this world, and it is so rare and precious. Pups hopes to help from his side keep feeding that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, vulnerability is strength.
Vulnerability is power. This is making me tear up seeing this love.
He's tearing up.
Thank you so much for the two of you for sharing this level of vulnerability, and something that Pups and I had mentioned, or Pups had mentioned in between filming, is these are some of the deepest relationships that you will ever experience, and something that I can't help but feel in the room right now, and that you have mentioned, is love. And Gemma, I know that we've had this conversation that, love is such a taboo topic, and I think it's impossible to ignore at times when the depth of a dynamic of an interpersonal experience that I know for myself and I know for you, we've learned dominant and submissive love, and how it is completely its own category beyond familial.
Yeah. It's a love that I never experienced until it was there.
After we stopped recording, something happened that had taken 2 years.
Did I see you almost tear?
Yeah.
I've been trying to get Pups to cry, even by beating him so hard, he doesn't cry.
Pups is feeling all the feels, Mistress.
Did you enjoy being dommed? Like, subscribe, and add your worships in the comments. Follow us on all socials linked in the bio below.